Hey everyone, welcome back to Feed Your Brand. I'm Tracy Hazard and I am here with Dame Lillian Walker, and I'm excited because we did this interview and the video wasn't so hot because we had bad internet connection.
It's my fault. I was traveling and
that's okay.
Low bandwidth. It was terrible.
Yeah, but these things happen. But here we are. I was like, Lillian's a video person. Let's get this redone. Let's get this right. So this is bonus. So if you listen to the podcast, this one's different. So we might get into some more things. So Lillian is the founder and CEO, I'm assuming, of Luxium Media. And we're going to talk a bit about that. But I just go into a little bit about your background, Lillian, because you have such a unique viewpoint of what it's like to be a small business owner, to grow that, to see how people build wealth.
Yeah, well, my background is I went to school. I went to USC and I was pre-med biosci and health administration as a major. And I also had an entrepreneur certificate. It was the actual first year that the USC School of Business actually had an entrepreneur program. So I was the first in that first batch of students who got an actual certificate because they didn't have a degree in entrepreneurship at the time. And so that's where I started off my career. And I had decided already my senior year that I wasn't going to apply to medical school. My health administration part of my degree, I had an emphasis in finance and marketing. So I ended up doing a internship with the Department of Health, which got me into marketing and, of all things, real estate, believe it or not.
Right, which seems like a jump when I was reading your resume.
Yeah, it kind of seems odd, and that's why I kind of have to explain the background. That's why it's like you see that I have a lot of banking and investing kind of a background, and I'm very heavy in the biological sciences and health and wellness, and you're like, what do these have to do with each other? But that's how I started. And once I graduated from SE, I didn't have any intention to apply to medical school because I already knew that I wasn't going to go in that direction. Because as a direct result of my taking a marketing class that was a requirement for the entrepreneur certificate, I ended up having to create a mock business. And in my group, I thought, if I'm going to do the work to create a mock business, I may as well create a real business. It's the same amount of effort and work. That's just how my brain works.
Mine would have been too. I would agree with you. It's like, why not just really do it?
Otherwise, why not just do the real thing? And I saw a need that I could fill. I saw that there was a high turnover of bicycles at USC. Everybody, that you buy a bicycle, you bring it to school, and there's a pretty good chance that it's going to get stolen. Just because in the area of LA that we live, it's just, if the neighborhood doesn't do it, the frat boys will do it as part of the hazing. So it kind of goes with the territory. So you see that everybody at the beginning of the semester, you're buying all these bicycles. So I thought, well, gee whiz, at the time, they didn't have bicycles. They didn't have beach cruisers and 10 speeds with the USC logos on it. So I thought, wow, everything with the USC logo, because I could not buy enough stuff that had USC logos, at USC sweats, USC trash cans, USC stationery, but they did not have bicycles that had the USC logo. So I went to Pep Boys, which was the closest supplier where everybody bought their bikes, and I just casually asked and started doing my research and development, my little research study, and I asked the manager, well, how many bicycles do you guys sell here a week? And he says, well, we sell between 500 and 700 bicycles a week.
Whoa.
I said, a week? And he said, yeah. He goes, we do that for about the first 6 to 8 weeks of each school year. And we do about 80% of that the second semester, but the bulk of it is done, in the fall. I thought, wow, that's a lot of bikes.
That's a lot of bikes.
and the bikes were at about $110 a piece. So I thought, this is, wow. And that's regular Schwinn bikes or whatever, Huffy bikes. These aren't even USC logo bikes. So I thought, that became my little project. Long story short, I happened to be connected with the Mayor's Office of Small Business Administration, downtown LA, with Mayor Bradley at the time. And so I was able to get a connection for an importer that I could import bicycles, never forget, Sun Trading Company, out of Taiwan. I was able to import bicycles from Taiwan. I got the bikes, $33 for 10 speeds and $35 a piece for beach cruisers. And I had to buy them in containers, needless to say.
Right.
I figured out that whole process, figured out how to have them shipped to the Port of Long Beach and then to have them drop shipped to USC. And I figured out a system that semester I took to, I got my small business license. I didn't even know that I needed a license, but through my class and through working with the Mayor's Office of Small Business, I had some amazing mentors. I had the head of the School of Business, which was Dr. Richard Buskirk, who was also dean. He actually tutelaged me, tutored me through the whole thing. And I ended up having my one little, private practice attorney. And of course, USC had their big group of attorneys. And so I managed to successfully get that bike, my 2 sample bikes, into the bookstore. And then the arrangement was that they would collect, payments. And then the moment they collected payments, I had a couple of kids that would assemble the bikes for them. So the students would come and pick up the bikes. I managed to get a licensing agreement. So I learned about how to use
and
USC's
that's not
logo.
Yeah, back then though, it was easier than it is now. It's like way more complicated and way more costly to do collegiate licensing now. Way more complicated. You were lucky then.
I was lucky. It was relatively easy. I didn't know that it was difficult or it was complicated. I basically had my one attorney who, helped me with that. And then of course I had the tutoring from Dr. Richard Buskirk, who dealt with Fortune 500 companies at the time. And I had the Mayor's Office of Small Business. It just so happened that my work study program happened to be with that. Yeah. So it all kind of came together for me. And so, I was like making $75,000 a week.
Yeah.
With that little venture, which I must say was short-lived, because several months into this, the USC board allegedly decided, I got a call from Elaine Terra, who's the manager of the SC bookstore, and she said, Lillian, I'm sorry to inform you, you're going to have to come pick up your bikes. The USC school board decided that these are not academic products. I said, what? They're not academic, but we have an agreement in place, and we're, and long story short, Dr. Buskirk and my attorney, Dr. Buskirk especially, said, you know what? They see you as, this little shallow-pocketed student. You're not going to have the dollars to fight, their, big law firm partnership and their board of attorneys. They see how much profit there is in here, and there's no way that they're going to give this up. And so because they can, they're going to take this away from you.
Yeah. And you know what? That's what happens in big retailers all the time. I've seen it happen again and again.
And as unfortunate as it was still a spectacular, really spectacular.
Well, I hope you got an A.
I got an A in the class. But that wasn't even the point, but it really got me into, I didn't know at the time that I even had this entrepreneurial spirit in me. I knew that I had a little bit of affinity, but it was so natural. It was so easy. I was fulfilling a need in the marketplace. And I thought, wow, it's like, I really have to.
And solving problems along the way, right? I mean, that's really what you were doing, which I love. We talked about this before. I think that I never considered myself an entrepreneur. I mean, it's not, you had a degree program that kind of indicated that to you, but I'd never heard the term before until really, it's not that I never heard it, but I'd never used it in conjunction with me to describe what we were doing ever, even though I agree with you. I fit that model, but I didn't term myself that until probably I'd say maybe about less than 10 years ago. So that I started using that word in conjunction. Yeah, to describe what I was doing. I always saw myself as a small business owner or an inventor, but not an entrepreneur. I just didn't think of myself that way, but it's a different mindset that and that you tapped into really early on that fits you.
Yeah. And like I said, I didn't know, it was funny because if you, rewind the tape to several years before I was still in the place where I was going to apply to medical school, that should have been my inkling at that time that I had an entrepreneurial thing. Because my idea was, okay, yes, I'm going to become a doctor. Eventually I'm going to have my own practice. And then I figured out I'd branch out and have clinics, have multiple clinics. So that was already.
You were already an expansive mindset.
Yeah. But I didn't think entrepreneurship. That just was like a natural and logical. It was that was just part of my knowingness. That was an entrepreneurial way of thinking, but I didn't know it at the time. And so,
but you also really have had great instincts and early on, obviously, but going forward with marketing better than other people, which I think is really, really part of the problem, whether you're like doctors and professionals are sometimes the worst at it, I've discovered. And I have many, many on my platform. Don't you think that they're terrible at marketing themselves? And they're great. They're like these hidden gems, but they don't want to talk about themselves. It's very weird.
Well, yeah. Well, and that's part of the, that was why I wanted to get the entrepreneur certificate, because I knew from relatives that I know who are doctors who are very successful, but business-wise, they're not the sharpest business people, not because they're not intelligent, but because medicine is changing so fastly. They don't have the time or the bandwidth to dedicate other than staying on the cutting edge of medicine.
Yeah, to do their thing, right? Yeah.
And continue in that thread of expertise with laser-like vision. And so I had a particular relative who got taken by their health administrator that swindled a ton of money from them. And I thought, that will never happen to me. And I knew that I needed to get some business education to equip myself. So, but God has a funny sense of humor. And that's kind of the serendipitous way how he started routing me to go into a particular direction. And so, that's how I started my career. That was, the first career was that particular business. It was called Walker Financial Enterprises, kind of an umbrella. So it gave me the opportunity to go into other markets and other types of
See,
products.
you were always thinking expansively. I love it.
Yeah. And then I ended up getting into real estate because the foreclosure market was starting to hit pretty big. And my family is big in real estate. My father's big in real estate, lots of properties and acquisitions and so forth. And so I thought, well, I'm going to have to get this under my belt. Again, future thinking. It's like, I better go ahead and get this knowledge now because I'm going to need this in the future when I am ready to invest. Well, that ended up routing me into the career of mortgage banking, which I could have never even heard of mortgage banking.
Yeah.
Never heard about refinancing loans or financing. I never even thought about that. And so it got me into mortgage banking. And that was the genesis of my banking and investing career, which fast forward about 3 years after I graduated from SC, I started First Pacific Mortgage out of my little 1-bedroom apartment and turned that little tiny brokerage, which at the time I did not have a broker's license. I had a salesperson's license. And like most people that I've interviewed on The Bottom Line Show Live, my radio show, people have adversity. Well, my adversity came in that I was working for a mortgage bank. And the day before Thanksgiving, I came back from my honeymoon, having been in Europe for a month. And I showed up in Long Beach. To Bayshore Mutual was the name of the company at the time. And when I got there, the door was wide open. The desks were gone. All the furniture was gone. You could not see the color of the carpet because there were files. All the loan files were strewn across the floor.
Oh my gosh.
The phones had been, and computers had been pulled out of the wall. You could see the cord still sticking out of the walls. And I thought to myself, what on God's green earth happened? So I immediately thought, I better check my bank account. I had deposited several commission checks prior to my leaving on my vacation and my honeymoon. And I had given my sister-in-law 3 checks to deposit. These checks added up to $29,000 at the time. So when I checked my bank account, the $29,000 hadn't cleared. They had bounced. And I thought, oh my gosh, something is seriously wrong. Okay, fast forward, what I ended up finding out that happened, the guy who was the broker that I worked for, turns out he was a con who had an alias. He had 16 different aliases that my attorney was able to find.
Wow.
He faked his death because apparently several people were after him to get their money. He had done this before on a smaller scale, apparently in Beaumont. He successfully got away with it there. He figured he'd do it in a bigger market, which he did here in Long Beach. And now here I stood. Luckily, it didn't make a difference for me at that point in the sense that, yeah, 29 grand is a lot of money. Don't get me wrong. But I didn't have checks bouncing that I had written because I was in a position where I was very blessed where I was making so much money that I didn't have time. That's why I had to give my sister-in-law the checks to deposit because I didn't have time to deposit them. I was making money faster than I had time to deposit it because it was before direct deposit.
Yep.
This was back in 89, 90. And so I didn't even have time to go shopping or to spend the money. So it was just, and I was the top producer for them. It was myself and this other guy, Rudy, who I was like the only female. I was the youngest and the only female. Everybody else was in their mid-30s all the way to their 40s and 50s. So the next top producer was this guy, Rudy. So him and I were always competing, because if we were the top, if we brought the most transactions, we won a $500 gift certificate to Nordstrom, which was a high motivator for me. And if you had the most fundings, you also got another $500 gift certificate. So I'm like, on top of the fact that I was already making quite a bit of money, I'm like, oh, great, I don't even have to touch that. That's $1,000 I have for wardrobe that has to be spent at Nordstrom. So I'm going to win that every month. You know? That was my mindset. So, and I did. It was like, I even learned to sandbag, which was to hold back a few loans, keep them in my car, those, because they weren't digital files, they were paper files. Because it's like, if at 4:55 Rudy showed up and handed in, I learned that tactic from him. It's like, oh, so he would one up me. Now he's up to 21 files that he had submitted for that month. I'm like, crap, I need to go back to my car and get 2 more files, because I was holding it to either the beginning of the month or to rescue me to make sure I could win.
Oh my gosh, that's so funny. So way back at that time, Tom and I would have been designing a mobile office vehicle at this office that was specifically for adjusters, mostly in the marketplace. And you would fit it in the front seat, and it had like file folder sections. And we designed this whole thing, and you could buy it. I mean, theoretically, you could have bought it like Office Depot or someplace like that back then, but that wasn't how it was being marketed. But it was specifically for people who were working out of their cars so much. And so we would have had the perfect thing. You would have just strapped it into your front seat. All your files would have been there. You could have done your paperwork from the car.
I would have bought, if I'd have known that, because I did. It's like, I remember back in those days, again, because I did as much volume as sometimes some little mortgage companies do in their entirety didn't do. And I was doing that just myself. And this is before, we have so many, the advent of technology and where cell phones have gone now and where we are with computers, it's vastly different. Yeah. This is before really the internet, right?
Yeah.
So it was really, I've always been to use like cutting edge technology as a tool to facilitate and increase my productivity. I've always been big on that. So when I found out that through Equifax, I could have this little portable device that it was heavy, but it was about this big. It was probably about 8 by maybe 7. And we had facsimile paper that was put in. I
remember it.
Remember, for fax machines? Well, I could run credit reports at my client's home. All I had to do is plug it into their phone line, and I could run the credit report. I didn't have to wait to take the file back home. I could start to pre-underwrite the file right there and then, because I saw their credit and I saw the debts. None of my competitors could do this, but I was so vested into, productivity and really serving my client and giving them, efficient, fast, bottom line answers.
Well, I want to segue from that to the Bottom Line Show, because, that's what I'm seeing here, is that everything that you've done and how things have gone over time is that you've merged sales and marketing together, which is where I think it needs to be today. I in fact just was writing an article about that, because it's just the convergence of it is so critically important. It's like marketing for brand awareness. It should be an aside. It should just happen from everything that you're doing, but have it be the purpose of marketing, to me, is a waste of time, effort, money, like however you want to look at it. That brand awareness should come naturally from all of that.
It should be an organic.
Yeah, it should be an organic side effect of everything that you're doing, everything that you do, whether it's, your customer service, all of those things breed brand awareness, right? So that sales and marketing have to be tied together. And so often I see them in bigger companies separated. But small business owners have to bring them together, because we just don't have the bandwidth. We don't have the team. And you've been doing that very naturally. So it all comes down to being bottom line results. And so you have a radio show called The Bottom Line Radio Show, which I love the title. I mean, I just love that message that you bring through the show. But why is that so important? And why did you start the show that way?
So when I started the show, I had already produced a radio show. It's kind of funny because I was fully immersed in real estate. I had my mortgage bank. I also had bought a real estate franchise. So I was a franchisee owner of an Exit Realty in Huntington Beach and also a one in Newport Beach. I spent most of my time, like 90% of my time, in Huntington Beach. And what happened was, I had somebody who was in Chicago, Illinois, who was in real estate, and him and his broker wanted to start a radio show. And from my having bought so much advertising and also advertising on cable TV, I inherently knew how to put that together and how to produce the show just from I've been interviewing people since I was 11. So when Jeff said, I want to do this, I said, Jeff, you know, you've had this passion to want to do radio your whole life. You've been in real estate your whole life. He came up with the idea of the real estate guys. I said, I'll help you produce it. I know tons of authors for real estate books, investment books, etc. I will arrange that for you, because he said, I wouldn't even know. I don't know any of them. I wouldn't know how to go about doing that. I'm like, I'm already in conversation with these people. They're already part of my network and sphere of influence. So I said, I will take care of that for you. You're the talent, either out on the street or, you know, in the studio. And so I produced that show, and I did that purely, I didn't do it for money. I did it purely because it was exciting to be part of. It was fun, and it was natural for me to do it. And I wanted to help somebody that I knew. So that's why I did that. So fast forward 3-4 years later, I thought I should do this for myself.
Whoa.
You know, something for everybody else. But it's like, I should just do this for myself, and I can promote my own business. And so that's why I started The Bottom Line Show. And when I started it, it actually had a different name because it was more heavy real estate when I first started it. So it started off as Cooking and Surfing Homes. And then I want to say 6 or 7 months later, it was apparent to me that that was not the right name. And it turned into The Bottom Line Show Live. And so I started it off by myself. I didn't have any guests, because the way I wanted to start talking about certain things that I knew that would be interesting to people about, you know, the 7 secrets to selling your home back in those days, because that was around the time that the recession was really hitting in 2008, and people were losing their homes left and right, and they didn't know, you know, if they had their house on the market, they didn't know why it was selling. And I already was privy to the real estate formula. So, right. And this is something that works in every market, anywhere, at any time. The United States, Canada, and Australia, I know that it works because this was shared with those agents and brokers in those marketplaces. And I even got sued because I did it so well by an estate, and we won in court because we showed, no, we didn't give up any equity. Yes, we sold this property when nothing is selling. We sold a house in Beverly Hills in 1 week. We sold it with multiple offers when no one was getting any offers. Multiple offers, highest price, highest net, and we closed 1 week later. So we sold it in a week and we closed in a week. And the heirs thought, oh, maybe we gave up a lot of equity, and we were able to prove without a shadow of a doubt. It's like, no, I got top dollar. So I wanted the show to help people, whether they pick me or somebody else. Here they have the truth. Here they have the bottom line information that now they can make an educated decision and a choice for what's best for them, whether it's beneficial for their broker, their lender, whoever it is that's representing them. Now they can either select me or they can select somebody who really.
But you were tapping into something with the radio show in this way that we've been doing in podcasting, and we see really successful right now. And you know, that was the point of International Women's Day, and when we originally recorded our episode that we did together. That was the point of really what we were looking at, was what are success stories that are happening. And some of the success doesn't have to be, I've just got this gigantic listening base. It can just simply be that this is serving my business well, giving me authority, and attracting the right customers to me. And that's good enough.
Well, yeah, there's, I really have come to a place in the last 10 years in my business where I do really embrace and incorporate the spiritual, energetic aspect side of it, and not just the straight business side of it. I really believe in the law of reciprocity. What you give out to the world, to the universe, to people, to strangers, you give it out in slices, and you know what? It comes back to you in loads from different places, different faces, different ways. And so you don't have to worry about that. You just give what you would like to receive. And it's like, I know that when I'm researching a topic, or if I have a question about anything in particular, it could be business, it could be health, it could be finances, relationships, it doesn't matter what it is. You want to get to the bottom line truth. And you may, because you find this expert, you may be so impressed with them that it's like, you know what? Yeah, I got all this free information from them, but I'm so convicted and so invested in what they've taught me that I want more. And now I'm willing to pay some pretty good dollars because I want to be in an immersive experience with them for either a day or 3 days, or heck, it might even be a week. I mean, I just had this happen in the last several weeks. I saw Dr. Joe Dispenza on What the Bleep 10 years ago. But what I've seen him do over the last 6 months, and I've been paying more attention to his free information through YouTube, that now I want to go to a 1-week retreat. I'm going to spend thousands of dollars to go to that and get direct information, because I want that immersive experience where I want that expert who now I know, like, and trust, because I've developed that relationship. He may not know me from Adam, but I have got enough information from him that now I'm willing to put dollars. I want those dollars to go to him, and I want to invest in this experience because I want the results that not only he's saying, but I see all these people getting from having been exposed to him.
Right. You know, and you're pointing out something that doesn't happen enough, which I think is a huge mistake on the listener side. You know, I have hundreds of podcast shows here, and I see so often their listener base is big, and yet it's not transacting and someone's not coming through and buying from them. And that's such a crazy mistake on the end of the listener, because I can see them on the other side that their businesses aren't, you know, blowing it up in terms of marketing dollars spent. Like, they're not doing all of that. And yet they're continually serving day in and day out. And as they're serving this stuff day in and day out, if you're getting value from it, you should want more, because I guarantee you they didn't serve it all up. They just can't possibly. It's not possible. Yeah. And they can't get personal, and they can't get one-on-one with that. So I just had this program that I was exposed to. You and I both know Aaron Young. He's a good friend of ours. Unshackled Owner is his podcast. And I was at his event, Magnify Your Wealth, which I absolutely adore. I've been multiple times, and he always brings the most interesting people to it. And I appreciate that I'm now one of his speakers, which just like, I have to tell you, of all the speaking events that I do, I was most honored to be asked by him, because that means you're really a part of the inner circle, right? And that's what his mastermind's called, on top of it all. So it makes you really feel such a great part of that. So it's an honor. But he brought someone who I'd met a couple of times before. I'd heard him on Scott Carson's podcast, a friend of mine also, and I think you probably know Scott Carson.
He sells notes.
He sells notes. Yeah. And We Close Notes is his podcast. And so Merrill Chandler is his name, and he has a company called Credit Sense. And I had never seen him speak, though. And I see him speak at Aaron's event, and he's brilliant. He's hacking the credit system in such a cool way that just like triggers off all these ideas in my brain about how this works and everything. So I go through his process, and I thought, I could call him up because I know him. I could call him up and say, hey, Meryl, tell me all about this. Give me this. But I decided I wasn't going to waste his time. I wanted to see what he was offering out and through his system. Mm-hmm. And he offers this great free evaluation when you see him speak, or, you know, whenever he does a talk. And his team is cool. Like, they just did the coolest stuff, and they share with you all these details in your credit report and all this stuff that you don't know, that's just totally screwing you up on an algorithm sense. Like, it has nothing to do with you as a person or mistakes you made. Yeah. It's just like, you know, you have an extra letter in your name. For some reason, they put like your middle initial here is my middle initial is Lee. My middle name is Lee. So L here, and they use your maiden name D here, and now it's a trigger, and you'll get you won't go through automatic underwriting. And so like, it's stupid stuff like that. And so but it's a brilliant system. And so he's sharing all of this, but there are 291 ways that things that are parts of these triggers for an automatic underwriting that are stacked against you. He couldn't teach that. He's got a boot camp for 2 days, and he can't teach you everything about those 290. Like, it's just not possible.
Too much,
yeah. So if you don't think that you should reach out to someone like that, you're making a huge mistake. Their depth of knowledge is huge. Your depth of knowledge is absolutely huge, right? And I think that that's such a mistake, that we don't take enough advantage. We take their advice, and we listen to it, and we take little nuggets here and there, but then we don't
dive in deep.
And that's really the difference between those that really become successful by using that knowledge to help themselves.
Yeah. And you know what? I think entrepreneurs, small and medium-sized business owners, and startups too, you have to love yourself enough to want to invest in yourself. And if you don't have a lot of discretionary funds, then of course you have to be judicious about how you use those dollars. But if you get a tax refund instead of using that tax refund on whatever, find an event like Merrill's, find an event like your events, find an event like Dr. Joe Dispenza, or whoever it is that you find that has an expertise, that you've been getting free information from them online through their podcasts, through their YouTube, vlogs and so forth, and decide, you know what, I'm going to spend either a day or 3 days or 5 days. I'm going to use my tax refund to invest back into myself. Because if I put $3,000 as an example into myself, and I have that immersive experience for a week, it could be that gives me $30,000 that I would not otherwise have if I hadn't gone and immersed myself in that experience with that authority who is an expert, who I have already identified.
Right.
And that, I think, is so critically important, because so many people are working in their business, but they don't take enough time to work on their business, which is much different.
It's very, very different.
Rat race, doing the mechanics of your business all day long, and you're not going to grow because you're doing the same thing every day, day in, day out.
Right. And that brings me back to the one thing that I really want to make sure that we get to, because of how you serve in the world, that we really want to get back to your company, Luxium Media, because reality here is it goes back to what we're saying, those doctors and professionals, and we're not really good at marketing our own businesses because we're not in our customer's head, we're in our own heads. And sometimes it really takes an outside expert to put a perspective on that, to put a polish on it, to show it in a way that you can shine in a way that people care. And that's what you do. So tell everybody a little bit about the video production work that you do there, because it's amazing and it's really cool looking.
Yeah, so part of what we do in the video production world is we take entrepreneurs. They could be in the health and wellness field, they could be doctors, you could be a small or medium-sized business owner, and whatever product or service it is that you have, we help you take that message out to the market, but we position you as the expert in that given niche in that particular market field. And what I find is sometimes people have a difficult time either coming up with content or they have an awkwardness, if you will, when it comes to presenting themselves online in front of a camera. In front of a customer, in front of a client or a prospect, they're completely fine. But for some reason, you put this tool that's called a camera in front of them, and they turn into two, awkward thumbs. And so, part of my mission statement, personal mission statement as to what my purpose is to facilitate, educate, encourage, empower people in the direction of their goals and their dreams. If I can give them one little bit of information, that now creates a solid foundation. Now you can step on that, and now you can take a baby step each day towards whatever your goal or your aspiration is.
Yeah. I love that. I love that model, Lillian, because, it really has this kind of, we don't really realize sometimes how all of these little bits and pieces. So if we're going to just take off, the intro video on our website today, and tomorrow we take on, the header graphic that we use on our YouTube channel, like you just start to bite these pieces off.
Little at the time, yeah.
Yeah, you shifted it. So now it's more audience focused. It's more focused at the people you want to attract. And you just shift that over time. It doesn't have to be a radical redesign and spend months and months doing it. And in the whole entire time, you're not marketing yourself. That's what I find so often. That's why I love the little baby steps. But the other thing that I really love what you're doing with the videos is that you're able to take them so that I don't have to speak. So I remember this time, the very first video I ever did, I was working for Herman Miller, and we had been designing the Aeron chair, was done and launched, and we were redesigning their entire color program. And they wanted me to come in and do a video that they were going to share at their big conference, at their big trade show. And it was just going to be little bits and pieces and sound bites of things that I was saying about how this color program had changed and what we had done to design it. So it was like a designer story kind of thing. And so, but every time they put that camera in front of me, I could not speak words. Like it was just awful. It was terrible.
It happens to a lot of people.
And the more I got frustrated myself, the worse it got, right? And so finally they did something brilliant where they basically just said, okay, you're going to ignore the camera. I'm going to ask you questions and you're going to answer them.
And it was just on the side.
Right. And it was way more brilliant than, I said things that they didn't even write that was so much better than what they had copywritten for me that I couldn't, for what script I couldn't follow for whatever reason. And so, finding ways to pull that out of them, or not even use footage and voiceover, which you do sometimes, or photos instead of video, whatever you can do to get it across, you make it happen for them.
So that part of it, the number one thing I feel is, the video production, although an important element, and that's the end product that not only the client sees, but also their customer base and prospects are going to see. The most important thing that I can help a business owner do is take that first step to be willing to go in the direction of, yes, I'm going to go on camera. Maybe it's uncomfortable. I don't know exactly how to go about it, but at least they know that they have a trusted advisor, which is me in this case, that I'm going to help them through the process. It's going to be pretty painless. It's going to be easy because they can't mess up because I'm there to assist them.
Yeah.
And so I could be as involved or as passive as they want, and we will go at the rate of their consumption so that it goes with ease and flow. And it doesn't take long. It's amazing how once you get started and you kind of get the hang of this, then people are like, okay, yeah, I'm going to need you either for a long time or yeah, I can do this. Either way, it doesn't matter. The most exciting thing is to see that person now give their expertise and gift it to the world in the medium that the world wants to consume it.
Right.
Everybody wants the video and the audio. Podcasts, audio only podcasts are big, and videos are even bigger because you get both, and you can have a video and not watch it and still listen to it. And so that is what consumers want. They want the video. So give people what they want. Be where they're looking for you. They're looking for you on Google. They're looking for you on YouTube.
Right. But here's the thing. I said this the other day to someone. So we were talking about catchy titles, right? And so, and catchy titles are really great on your podcast, but Google doesn't have a sense of humor is what I said. And so, which is so true. And so we're in this world really where automation, where bots, artificial intelligence is actually cultivating our search for us. So they're our screeners. So we have to find a way to get through them to the people. And then from there, that's when our sense of humor kicks in. That's when our personalities kick in. That's when our deep giving kicks in and people get to know, like, and trust you. But you also have to get past the bot stage too. And that's why having video, having podcasts, and having blogs, having all three things is really valuable. But start from where you need to have the most impact direct with your customers, because that's where you're going to be authentically you. And if that's on video, then start there, because that's where you really should be.
And again, I can't emphasize enough, just getting started. Because once you get started, I guarantee you that it will evolve and it will change. You yourself will naturally know how to gravitate. You will have certain likes and dislikes. You're like, okay, I did it this way. This time I want to do it this way. This time, and that's part of the growth process. But you would have never gotten there had you not started. And Casey Neistat is a big YouTuber, as you know, and he does a lot of Nike commercials, and he's a fantastic award-winning filmmaker. And he will tell you, it's like the most important thing. Nobody has any excuse nowadays to not get started. Whether let's say today I decided I'm going to get into the dog walking business, as an example. If you want to get into the dog walking business, you probably have a cell phone. Yeah. You have the capacity to not only take pictures, you also have the capacity to take video. You can do a Facebook live stream. You could do a live video onto YouTube, or you could just record a 3-minute video and upload it to YouTube. The point is, get started, no excuses.
Right.
And then the second thing, once you get started, you can't just do one video now or do 3 or 4 videos this week and then don't do any for the rest of the year.
Consistent and constant, that's the term.
Consistency. So at least commit to putting up 1 video a week, which at first people are going, oh, 1 video a week. Forget the editing, forget all the other stuff. Just do a simple video and upload it.
Yeah.
End of story. And if you want to have a more professional, polished look, then you can bring somebody like myself to come in that we can video edit. And we have all sorts of, we can go from low range all the way up to upper range. The bottom line is, don't let that keep you from moving forward in your business, because that's where people are looking for you. And if you're not on video, online, you lose credibility and you may as well be non-existent.
Right.
And so you have to get out there and just make believe you're talking to your mother or your best friend.
Well, and or your favorite client. Like if you think
That
of
would
your
be ideal.
favorite patient, your favorite client in your head, and you were talking to them. So this is something I practiced early on when we were podcasting, because I found it difficult, because it's like, it's, you know,
Everybody does.
you're recording. Like I actually really love Zoom, like we're doing it right now, and we're recording on video because we're interacting and I'm face to face with you. Like that's easy for me to be passionate about. But when I was doing solo episodes, or, you know, even Tom and I doing them, and you're just talking into your microphone, it felt weird. So I started imagining that I was really talking to my favorite client. And when you're talking to your favorite client and sharing things with them, it gets you to attract those same kind of people again and again. So it has that law of reciprocity, right? It's your law of attraction there, and you're attracting the people you want.
Yeah. And one of the things that I love telling people, because when I first started my own, like I said, my own radio show for my real estate business, I noticed that every week I had prospects and clients that were asking me questions all the time. So what I did was I kept a notebook. I kept a notebook in my car. I kept a notebook at home and by my phone. And I also kept a notebook next to my phone at my desk at work. And whenever somebody would ask me a question, I would write it down. Why? Because that's a great title. What is escrow, for example? Like one of the videos that I have that's got thousands of views, what is escrow? Any how-to or what is question about anything in your business, any question that a prospect, a client, or someone asks you is great content for a video. Instead of just answering them verbally or just answering them by email, you can answer them by video. And in the description, you can transcribe it. If you don't want to transcribe it on the actual video, just put it in the description of the video, the answer. So now it's in written form and in video form. Google gives you extra points for that, by the way.
Yep, they do.
So that, you know, you get extra search engine optimization.
Because Google owns YouTube. If you
and because Google owns YouTube, absolutely. And so that's like a freebie that I'm giving you guys, but it's critical that you know that. And if you just start taking, you'd be surprised. You probably have at least 10 questions a week that come across you. People text you a question, call you with a question, email you with a question. You're at a networking event, they ask you a question. That's video content.
I know.
This week, you start your video. Hi, this is Lillian, and just today I had somebody ask me. Last week I had somebody ask me, is it possible to start a podcast without guests?
Yes.
Absolutely. That's how I started.
Right. That is exactly it. Yeah, absolutely. And actually, it's really recommended for certain types of businesses. So there you go. You've got a whole viewpoint that you could be talking about. You know, we keep a Google Doc because we co-host, so we always have to make sure that each one is letting the other know what we've come up with. But what I do always on there is note who sent it. So it might be, you know, Liam L from Brooklyn, you know, so like I do like protect their privacy, that's who it is. But when
just their first name.
Right, just their first name or whatever, and where they're from. And so that they do feel like, oh, she did give me a shout out, right? Well, when you have people in a group who do that, and then you take their question and you do that, it gets competitive, and now more of them start submitting. So you can actually increase your engagement by doing that, by giving a shout out with a name and not say somebody asked, because people hear somebody, it's like, oh, you just said that, you made up the question and then you said it. So really early on, I have to admit, when we started our 3D print podcast, we didn't have people submitting anything, and we wanted to bank up a bunch of episodes. So we used all of our friends' names, and we were like, oh, by the way, you were mentioned on our podcast this week. You should listen to it. And they were like, know nothing about 3D printing. But by giving them a name, it encouraged engagement. And then other people were like, well, I want to be mentioned. It's just human nature. And so that's actually really works well too. So
yeah, and that's a great, that, you know, you could have people that are reaching out to you in social media, you know, on your Instagram, they might be asking you questions, or on Facebook, they might be asking you questions, or on Twitter, whatever social media platform. Those are legitimate inquiries.
They are.
And so you could say, you know, oh, I just had, you know, Tracy on Twitter who asked me, yada, 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 you know, and I think that's fantastic, because people do, you know, Oprah says that
Yeah.
the number one need that people have is to be acknowledged.
That's right. That they do. They so do. Well,
And
Lillian, I want to briefly, before we go here, touch on how you became Dame Lillian Walker, because that's a cool story, and I don't want to miss it with all this talk about how-to stuff, because this is, this is about you, and so I want to touch on that briefly, because that's a really cool story. Not many people have this story. So
okay, first of all, this was never on my vision board. This was never anything that I thought was even within the realm of possibility. This really was a tangent blessing kind of a thing that kind of came out of nowhere. I kind of didn't know really how it happened. But back in 2013, there were a couple of, most of the physicians that I know have 3, 4, 5 medical degrees. And so they're doctors that are really committed to the art of healing, not just being MDs that write out prescriptions. And so there were 2 doctors, one that happened to be from the West Coast, and then another one who was from the East Coast. And they both, I didn't know, but they both were knighted, and they both nominated me to Her Excellency Countess Babrinskoy, who is the one who leads the order. And so I didn't know that, though, at the time. So then I had Dr. Sandra, who came up to me and she said, oh, by the way, you've been nominated to be knighted in the Order of St. John. And I said, what? And it's like she was talking Swahili to me, because it's like, me knighted? And it's like, how is that even possible? Well, apparently there are groups of people, or the powers of be. I really don't know the nitty gritty of it, but apparently there are people who pay attention to whatever, charity work you do and follow your career, or, I don't know the backroom workings of that, but I was just flattered. I'd never even heard, I kind of heard of the Order of St. John, but I really didn't know it had anything to do with being knighted or how that kind of worked. And so long story short, I was just thrilled to be nominated. I have on my vision board still, to have an Oscar nomination for screenwriting and for film producing. That's on my vision board, but this was definitely not on my vision board. So just to be nominated, I thought, holy cow, it doesn't matter if I don't actually win it. And then much to my surprise, a few months later, I got a call and it says, congratulations, you've been approved and your investiture. I'm like, there's an investiture? Oh my gosh. There's a knighting ceremony and it's going to be in LA. And so as big as that was for me at the time, what was more flabbergasting it's a period of time where I kind of had an explosion of all sorts of serendipitous, what I call God incidences going on in my life.
Yeah.
It goes in waves. And so that was like a really big, everything was happening at that time. And that was one of the things that happened. So then I get notified that, not only, July 28th, 2016, you're going to be knighted. And, by the way, it's going to be at the Agape Center in Los Angeles. And, by the way, Dr. Reverend Michael Beckwith is going to be knighted with you.
Wow.
Reese is going to be knighted with you. Jack Canfield is going to be knighted with you. Lisa McNichols is going to be knighted with you. Barnett Bain is going to be knighted with you. And I'm thinking, what? I'm going to be knighted with who? I said, what's my name doing in that mix? I don't belong. I'm not even a small potato. Those are big potatoes, and I'm a molecule of a small little spud. I'm like, I don't belong in that group. I was in that group, and then it came to pass. So it was a very surreal experience, because I'd been reading, and following Jack Canfield in his books for years, and Don Miguel Ruiz, the same thing, and Dr. Reverend Michael Beckwith, and now Don Miguel Ruiz has become a pretty good friend, and so has Reverend Michael Beckwith. But at the time, I never had met them in person, and now I'm in, we are quote unquote nightmates. The Countess doesn't like me using the term nightmates, but I call them nightmates because we're all knighted together. But it was just, I really have to say that it's God's infinite grace, whether you're religious or not. The universe was just being gracious. It was not something that I feel that I deserved. It was just, It was just a gift for some whatever reason.
But so interesting because it changed your associations, it changed your community, it moved you to a different level. So it was something that was necessary at the time. You just didn't know it. Someone else was making that happen for you. So.
Yeah. I really have to say it was well, obviously God used obviously Dr. Sandra Rose and Dr. T on the other end too. So I really I don't really know how that because it still doesn't make sense to me. But it is what it is. But it has been like I've been writing these waves of God incidences and serendipities and I think part of it, I just had this last week while I was in Denver, just out of the blue. You know how inspiration, there's no rhyme or reason. Inspiration strikes when it strikes, right?
Right.
So it was probably about 1:00 in the morning, and I was, kind of getting ready to get settled down for the evening and excited about what I had planned for the next day. And then I had this fleeting thought about friendship, and I thought I should write a book on friendship. And I thought, well, that doesn't make sense. Why would I write a book on friendship? And long story short, then I had the title, I go, if I were to write a book on friendship, I'm like, what would it, what do I even call it? That's just a book on friendship to me sounds boring. And then I got the Friendship Oracle. And I said, oh. And I said, the Friendship Oracle. I'm like, I don't even use the word oracle in my vocabulary. So that kind of caught my attention. I go, I better write that down. So then I opened up my laptop and I said, I'm just going to write a few notes. And I've had some pretty distinct conversations with my BFF, my best friend, who was my roommate when I was at USC. And we've had now a 30+ year friendship, right? We met when we were 18. So I was just going to write a few notes. Well, I started with the cover of the book. I did that. And then my notes turned into, I basically wrote the first 24 pages of the book.
Oh my gosh.
So I had no idea until I went scrolling down to see, well, how much did I write? Because before I knew it, 2.5 hours had passed. And it felt like 20 minutes had passed, but it had been 2.5 hours. So I'm like scrolling, 24 pages. I'm like, oh my gosh, I got a quarter of a book done here. So I'm like, okay, the book will be about 100 pages, no more than 110 pages. But now I'm like deep into the book. And I found that I really have something very specific to say. I do. And at the same time, I kind of felt like it was just like something that just like flew through me, because I don't normally write 24 pages like in 2.5 hours, but I did. So now I'm in the midst of this book, which I'm going to probably finish now in the next week or two here. And, but the reason why I wanted to bring up the Friendship Oracle book is because it really is the basis and the bottom line to, I think, people flourishing not only in business, but in their lives as a whole.
I agree.
People look at me now on this interview with you and they think, oh, she's outgoing, she's gregarious, she's ebullient, blah, blah, blah. She's a master networker. I would never describe myself that way, but I've had people describe me that way. And if you only knew, when I was in high school, my freshman year, it was November, my freshman year in high school, and I knew nobody. I knew nobody and nobody knew me. I had an invisible superpower that I did not want, but no one even knew I existed other than my teacher.
Oh, wow.
I made a decision. And so I talk about that in the book as one of my stories, because I think there's this fallacy. People think that in order for you to be successful in business, you have to be outgoing, you have to be gregarious, you have to be this or that. Not necessarily.
Yeah. You know what? You're so right. Because I found all types. And so it is always interesting to do that. But the most interesting thing that I found is that there are a lot of best friend pairs that are so different from each other.
Absolutely.
And that's really, I mean, that's so telling to me about how critically important that is.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And we spend so much time at work that we are bound to develop friendships. Some of them are very close friendships, other looser friendships, some of them a little bit more aloof, but we have different degrees of friendships and business associates and acquaintances that we develop in business. But that is something that you as an individual, we are not fragmented. I would hope we were not fragmented beings. We are entire spiritual beings that are moving through life, whether it's through work, whether it's in our personal lives, recreation, wherever we go, there we are.
Yeah.
That's what Brian Buffini, who is one of my mentors, his mom, a little Irish woman, used to always say, everywhere you go, there you are. And it's true.
That's
everywhere
right.
you go, there you are. But you have the power of your own free will, and you can choose how you want to show up. You can choose what kind of results you want, and you can choose how to respond in certain circumstances. And if we realize that if we take less time looking so much at ourselves, and you start thinking, you know what, I can make it easier for the other person by being the first one who reaches out and says hi with a smile and stick out my hand. I can make it easy for that other person to connect with me rather than me be waiting, sitting on my hands, which is what I was doing up until 9th grade. I was waiting for people to make it easy on me and to come up to me and say hi and lift me of that burden. And thank God they didn't.
Yeah.
Because I had to go through that uncomfortable process and say, you know what? It sucks to be shy.
Yeah.
No payoff.
Yeah. So I want to end with a story about us. So Lily and I met on stage. Well, just before we went on stage at a city summit event in 2017. Yeah. And so we were about to be on the same panel that was on women's empowerment. And what you may not realize was that I was not expecting to be on that panel. I was supposed to be on the innovation panel earlier that morning, and something happened and they decided to move me around. And I was actually a little annoyed by it. I have to say that I've met it, Ryan knows that because I've mentioned it before. But so Ryan Long, the founder of City Gala, and the organizer of all of that. And so it was like, I was expecting to be this woman talking about innovation, which is very rare. And so now you put me on a women's empowerment panel, and I don't feel like an expert in that in any way, shape, or form. And so there you are, you're standing next to me. We meet each other before we go on stage, and we do our thing on stage, and I start to realize, wow, what amazing women I'm sitting with, right? Because I had not really known you, you hadn't known me. Like, it's really cool. And so since then, it's been, this is a part that I want everyone to hear. It's like, we've managed to touch base occasionally over the couple of years. We've even had some drinks together and done some things like that. But it tends to happen that one or both of us put out videos, catches the other's attention on Facebook, and we go, oh my gosh, I haven't talked with her in a while. And we start texting back and forth and getting time together again. So putting yourself out there is helping our friendship evolve over time as well. And so I want people to realize it's not just your business relationships or your clients you're starting to attract, it's also those friendships.
Absolutely. It's about that human interaction and that connection. And if it's important to you, then you'll do it. If it's not important to you, or if you just want to go in default mode, then you're going to get the results that you've had all the way. And so it's just a matter of being the first one. It's like, you may not have 30 minutes to talk to somebody, but just either a quick little text or even a hi and hello. I even did an experiment when I had my brokerage, because this is something that is a reoccurring theme with people. So guess what? I had brokers and salespeople working for me. They're people. They had these same issues that we're talking about that these entrepreneurs are going through. They had the same issues. So I challenged them, because I said, you know what? You can't just communicate in one method to your clients and your prospects. It's like an onion. You have to have multiple layers. So you have to be willing to pick up the phone and call them. You have to be willing to text them. You have to be willing to email them. And lastly, the coup de grace and the bow that's bright red around the whole thing is sitting down and writing a personal note.
Right.
Which I'd say 70% of them were horrified. What will I write? It's hard enough to figure out what to say. What will I write? I said, I challenge you, and I'm going to do this with my group of people. And I actually challenge them. Just take a personal note, address it to the person with your return address, put your business card on the inside, and on the inside, just write a giant hi with an exclamation mark. Put your business card, close it, and send it. They're like, oh, that would be so embarrassing. I go, why would it be embarrassing? I did 5 of them, because our goal was to do 5 to stay alive. So 5 personal notes a day. So I did that to 5 people. And we had weekly office meetings on Wednesdays. So then I shared my results the following Wednesday, and I invited them to share their results. And anybody who's watching this, let's say it's only one person that's watching this, I challenge you to do this, personal or business. Just write hi, sign your name. If you have a business card, throw your business card in there and mail it. I had the most pleasant feedback from that. People called me or texted me and they said, oh my gosh, I just got your note today. You're so funny. Thank you so much. You made my day. Or, oh my gosh, you're so clever. You sent me a card that said hi. And so I'm saying hi right back at you. I was now on their radar, one, which is what you want as a business owner. You want them to think about you and the service that you provide. So did I accomplish that? That's good marketing.
Yeah.
But I was genuinely wanting to say hi to them. And I kept it short and simple, didn't take a lot of their time for them to read it. They received the energy. And so it was effective. And every single one of my agents did it. And they got unbelievable results. They couldn't believe it. I said, so you don't have to be very eloquent. No, if you don't have anything, you just say, hi, just checking in on you. Haven't talked to you in a while. Sincerely, Jack.
Best wishes, whatever. Yeah.
Best wishes and hugs. Or you could look up a quote. Hi, Susie, just saw this awesome quote. Write the quote out. Thought of you. All my best, Jackie. Send it off to them. You could write that same note to all 5, all 10, any number of people. A favorite quote that you came across this week.
Yeah.
The fact that you put that energy, because people don't write notes anymore. So it's
no, they really don't. Yeah.
That much more valuable when they receive a personal note. You're not asking for anything. You're giving something to them. And you put your energy and your life. It took a few minutes for you to do that.
Yeah.
You had to be mindful and attentive about that. And so that's another thing that people can do. That's marketing, believe it or not.
That absolutely is. How fun.
They don't think it's marketing, and that's marketing. And so those are little things that you can do that will implement into your business that will grow and expand your network and ultimately the number of people that will add to your bottom line.
I love it. Well, let's end there because bottom lining, we just really, value what you're bringing into the world, Lillian. I do. I love what you're doing. I love the energy that you bring to it all. I look forward to reading your book. So I'm really hoping you are finishing that.
I might have you be the first person to read it before I actually publish it.
I would be honored. I would be honored. I've actually done that for a few people. I would be honored. So thank you for that. So Lillian Walker, thank you so much for being here today. I'm so glad we got a chance to catch back up, get a better video recorded, signed, and let you shine. So thank you again for that.
Thank you for inviting me to be on again. And it's always a joy in any way, shape, or form if I can connect with you. Phone call, email, text message, in person. Oh my gosh, it's like a major lotto win day for me, the days that I get to spend face to face where I can see you. We got to book one of those days very soon.
We do. We have to. Yep. Get some mango smoothies in. So there.
Yes. Yeah, that was good last time, wasn't it?
Yeah. So definitely. Well, everyone here, please connect with Lillian. All her information's in the blog post that this will be at. It'll also be in the YouTube post as well. So if you're watching this on YouTube on video, you'll be able to connect directly with Lillian from there. So thanks again, everyone, for listening.
I was going to say, if they also want to connect with me on Instagram, Lillian I. Walker on Instagram, they can direct message me there.
There you go. Okay, great. Instagram, new platforms, all great ways to connect. So we'll make sure that's in the show notes as well. So everyone, thanks so much for listening. This has been Tracy Hazard on Feed Your Brand.